All right, good evening, everyone. About time for us to get started, so welcome to the Guild. So great to see everyone. What a great crowd we have. Nice to see everybody out. It's a great time of year to throw your garage door up and get some woodworking done, right? It's not too hot, not too cold, doesn't last long, but it sure is nice when we have it. Welcome to all of you that are joining us on streaming, whether it's on YouTube or Facebook. So good to see everyone, and nice to see everybody in person. Do we have any first-time visitors tonight? All right. Thank you guys for coming. It's always great to have. Do we have any new members as of tonight? All right. Tell us all about yourself. What's your name? What's your name? Matthew, great to have you here. Thanks for joining. And all of you that are visiting, I don't know what's stopping you. So before the end of the night, this is a great organization. I think if you speak to the people around you, we're really proud of the group that we have, and it's just a great place to come, learn and meet people and hang out and do some cool crafts and of all different kinds. I'm very excited tonight to have Madeline here from the National Museum of Toys and Miniatures. So we're going to do the meeting a little bit different. We're going to do our business meeting, which you guys know I like to pound through it, so we'll push through that really fast. We'll turn it over to Madeline, and then we'll save the Jim Bainey show for show and tell. We'll do that after our break. So good with everybody? I'm glad you agree, because that's what we're going to do. So, a couple of big things. We are, I know our biggest thing we've been going on this year is our shop update, because our lease is, we're losing this place at the end of May. I'm happy to present that we're very close on a new location. And Chris, do you have a couple picks? So we don't have a signed lease, so this is not final, but we're comfortable enough to know that we're close, so we're letting everyone know where this is. It's at 1717 Washington Street, which is one block west of Broadway. It's kind of catty-cornered from the Kauffman Center, so it's a great central location. It's got a great view of the crossroads. If any of you all are in construction, it's across the street from Gieske Sheet Metal. I knew Gieske Sheet Metal from my construction stuff, so that helped me figure out where it was. Right close to Los Tules Mexican restaurant. I think we're all of us are pretty excited about it. We don't have a signed lease, so we can't tell you it's finalized. I wanted to give everyone an encouragement. We think we're getting close. So hopefully within the next week or two, or however quickly we can get it done, we can start working towards a finalized plan. So that's the update. Any quick questions about that so far? So the parking situation, we get 20 dedicated spaces 24/7, and then for meeting spaces, there's a lot of about 100 spaces at night. I think they have 6 or 8 vans that get parked there overnight. So we have adequate parking for meetings, and we have about 20, and there's some street parking. So that answered that question. It's as far as accessibility from the highway, it's just as good as this. It's central to Kansas City. Yeah, Robert. So the rent is. John's going to talk about that a little bit, and in the newsletter. But our rent and utilities are approximately double what they are here. So it is what it is. We've looked at a lot of places, and based on what we've seen, this is actually a pretty favorable deal from a lot of the options that we had. So, but it's still substantially more. Jim?
How many square feet?
So square footage, it's around 12,000. So it's not substantially bigger. It is one big rectangle, so we think it's going to be a chance to be more efficient. You would have liked to have gotten bigger, but it kind of is what it is. So, yeah, John. wood turners are also coming with us as well. So we're in it together. So that's the update. If you have other questions, come see me at the break or whatever. I'll try to do my best to give you a equivocating non-answer, but at least that's more information than we've had. I love the location. Craig's already ready to do his first Friday sell-a-thons over there. So it's kind of going to be a fun location in a people can't drive by and say, "Oh, I saw the Woodworkers Guild right now." But over there, I think we'll be able to have a nice sign, right, that you can see from Broadway. I think it is going to be a really nice move for us. So, we can't have everything. We would love to have it cheaper. We would love to have a little bit bigger space. But I also think we're also going to really love it. I'm very excited about it. So hopefully you are all too. And you have more questions, let me know. I kind of gave the update. Ron Hall has been working very hard on the lease and the property, so I appreciate Ron. So round of applause to Ron. And other than that, he said he has nothing to report because I already took all the work he's been doing and gave you the update. David, anything? Craig, anything? John, I asked John to take the heat and maybe talk about our our plan for our dues update. So John can take the bullets on that one.
Pardon me? I caused it? No, a lot of... So when we were looking at the costs of the new locations, on average, we've paid about $6 a square foot here, and it's anywhere from $12 to $20 a square foot at some of the places we found. We're negotiating right about $12.50 a square foot for our 12,000 square feet. So we go from about paying $4,700 a month to $12,500. Now we get a little bit of offset because the utilities are included in that. So I think we're probably spending about
Roughly double.
7,500, yeah. So, and that's the biggest piece of the cost increase. All the other programs we've kept level. The trainings normally pay for themselves, as does the skills class. So we're covering our costs of running the shop, insurance, utilities, and rent. And so from my understanding, we haven't had an increase since 2017, approximately.
That was minor.
So this was to get us as close to a balanced budget as we could, and we'll still be taking a little bit out of savings to make that a balanced budget. So this next year will kind of give us a better idea of where we're at year round. We tried to estimate. Hopefully everybody comes back, but we also put, a little bit of buffer in there for those that might not. And then I'm also looking at if we have the options to do subscriptions, which allow you to pay over 4 payments, if that's something that's of interest to the membership. I'm doing some research on that.
Sounds good. I think most. So I don't have them in front of me, but right now for a sawdust maker is around 120. A Woodworker Plus is 125, and I believe we're going to 250. So we're roughly doubling the dues, which is not what we would like to do, but I think if we all kind of multiply it out per month, we still would think it's a good deal. But I can understand that money is not always the easiest thing to talk about, so we're doing the best we can, and hopefully you all agree that's still a good deal. So, we're going to have options also for those that are financially blessed to maybe have an option to contribute more. We have our benefactor like we always have had, which is a nice way to support the guild. So anyway, everyone's going to have to make their own decision, but I think if you go and price us against like a like a Hammer space or one of these maker spaces, but still those are charging $250 a month sometimes. So I still think we offer a wonderful facility at a great price so it's worth it, but it is a bigger dues increase than we were hoping. So does anybody else have any quick questions about that? Yes, sir. Is finishing going to be allowed is the question. I don't think it will. I think we're going to stick to kind of the same sort of level of services that we're allowed to do. Yes, ma'am. We will have some storage. So I don't know if it will be as extensive as we have now, but we probably will have some storage. So, and that's one thing if we continue to expand the guild, which is wonderful, storage may not be the highest thing on the list. But I know that Chuck's working on some plans now, and it does include some storage. So, yes, sir. I think it's probably early to say exactly how that's going to be done. I would say that it's going to be anything and everything. I think we will probably be leaning on the members to help, but we'll also probably have some contracted items as well. And I know that's a very vague answer, but it's probably just too early to tell. So I'm sure Chuck will probably be the lead on that, so go pepper him with questions. Yeah. All right. Anything else, John?
The rates are in this. Sorry, the new dues rates are in this month's. Sorry, in this month's newsletter, and unfortunately, I left them in my car, and I don't have them to memory just yet.
All right. So. Wonderful, great location. That's what you take away. We're happy, okay? But things do cost more. I mean, have anybody been to Wendy's and gotten a combo meal lately? That used to be like $8. Used to be $5. Now it's $15. It's crazy. And do you want to upsize it? Good gracious. I shouldn't be eating that anyway. Chuck's got some stuff for sale. Chuck, what do you got good back there to sell? You got some lumber, I think. Lumber, dowels, pliers, and dollar tools. So you need to go check that out. Did I say that correctly? Plywood, okay. Awesome. Pliers. You don't have any pliers back there? Plywood, not pliers. Sorry about that. Brian, anything from the communications committee? As far as newsletter, Ron and Steven did a great job, and I appreciate Ron's patience because he emailed me when I was in Ireland, and he said, "Hey, you haven't done a newsletter article yet," and I did not get it done before I left. So, in the one evening, I sat down and put it together on my phone, and they were nice enough to accommodate my slackness, which is kind of a standard thing. Saw some amazing furniture in Ireland too. So I know I just put a handful of pictures in the newsletter, but I saw some really cool stuff after that. So if you want to see some more pictures, I can bore you for a while. Don has some amazing deals over there. Books are $1. Magazines a quarter each, or 5 for $1. So some great fine woodworkings over there. I know there's I perused the table, and I bought one of those books at retail price. So that makes me feel like I didn't get as good of a deal. So you guys need to take advantage of that. Throughout your week, please check us out on Facebook. Go to our Facebook page. We have a Facebook group. People are asking questions. where to buy lumber, things like that, and other things, different projects. Instagram, we have an Instagram page, so check that out. I like to tag my work on hashtag Kansas City Woodworkers Guild, so maybe some of you all see that. I do post on Instagram from time to time. Our YouTube channel now is up to 376 subscribers, so if you're not a subscriber, go be one. It's some great videos. We have all of our monthly meetings there. We have our skill builders there. We have the podcasts that we put together, which are some really cool ways to get to know some of our members that have been interviewed by Kevin and others. So go check that out. There's some great info on there. I have a few that I need to catch up on, but I probably have watched most of them, which is in my spare time what to watch. A woodworking video. That's a good way to pass some time. Better than reality TV. Chris McCauley, events and
Yes.
AV.
AV, as always, looking for help if anyone can help out. Events. We just this last weekend had our Mill and Grill out at L&K. We had a pretty decent turnout for that. Larry and Cami were very happy, but they also said if you did not make the Mill and Grill and like to go out there, they are doing the Hardwoods and Hoedowns toy drive. So they are doing a toy drive and winter apparel. They're partnered up with some school, someone through a school, I think. Through Cami's a teacher. And so they're doing, for families in need, they're doing toy drive and winter apparel. The Hardwoods and Hoedown is not this Saturday, but the following Saturday. Bring your own lawn chairs. They're going to have food trucks. The building is heated, and it's going to be a good time. Last year was a lot of fun. So live band playing, just a good time to get to hang out and mingle with people and for a good cause.
And something we haven't worked on too much, but 2 months from now we are planning to do a Christmas dinner, right?
Yes, we got the Christmas dinner. I'm working on all the details on that. As soon as I have the details squared away for that, I will be sending that out in the newsletter and email blast. It is a sign-up for that. We ask people bring a dessert or a snack, and then there is a small fee to cover the cost of the catering. We do have it catered. And it's just a good time to hang out and socialize with other guild members and meet their families.
All right. Thank you, Chris. Moving down. Jim, I see your update is we're up to 956 members, and we've already talked about the dues. So anything else? Nothing else? As far as programs, Matt, I know we have Madeline here tonight, and next week we're going to have a Zoom meeting from Tom McLaughlin of Epic Woodworking. If you all remember, he was supposed to come back in April, but they had car trouble, so they're going to join us via Zoom. And Tom is a pretty renowned woodworker if you've seen him in magazines or maybe TV or podcasts or on the internet. So it's exciting to I'm looking forward to seeing Tom. It's going to be a good program. Safety committee meetings will be held the second Tuesday of the month at 7. Always looking for new people to get involved with safety. So if you have a desire or you want to give back to the guild, think about joining up the safety committee. And Steve Vinny is our leader, so you can look for him if you're interested, or let me know, or find Craig or Chuck or anybody. Rough to ready. Any announcements, John? You want to come up?
If you've been thinking about, excuse me. Okay. If you've been considering taking the Rough to Ready class, now is a great time to sign up for it. We have some outstanding instructors and a whole lot of class openings between now and the end of November. So before the move starts, get that under your belt and sign up. If you'd like more information tonight, you can see me or Ed Stewart, and Ed is back there at the bench. So, yeah, consider it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, John. So sponsorship, Dwayne has raffle back there, so come check it out. I don't know, you have a nice smorgasbord of things back there, I'm sure. And as always, remember, we have a lot of sponsors. We have one of the great things about being in the guild, we get discounts at our sponsors, at some of them, like Woodcraft or Rockler or Metro Hardwoods or any number of places. So, I mean, honestly, I buy enough supplies that I think over the year I save as much as I pay for dues. So that's another reason for us to keep going strong. Kevin has some classes listed. We do have a skill builder coming up, which is going to be me on the first Saturday in November, which I don't know what day is that, like November 4th or something like that. November 5th. So my program is going to be, I probably haven't put out any details on it, but it's going to be how to go about reproducing a piece of furniture, especially if it has curves. Like, let's say your wife has a chair and she wants one made like that. How would you go about getting all the information and making the patterns and all that kind of thing? And it's not just for ball and claw feet. It's for any type of furniture. So that's what the program is going to be. You know, how to go about that, how to get the information, what information do you need to make an accurate reproduction. So that's what the program is going to be about. We have Craftsman Clock coming up, and there's 4 days of that on December 4th, 5th, 18th, and 19th. There's 2 different classes for project finishing. Both of these are done by the lovely Craig Arnold. 10, 23, 24, and 25th is the first one, and 11, 6, 7, and 8. Do we have openings in those classes, Kevin, or are they? So check that out if you're interested in those. And then there's 2 classes on building wooden toys coming up on 11/11 and 12/9. So check those out. And if you have an idea for a class you want to see, or if you want to teach a class, we're always looking for people to step in and do that. Last thing on our agenda is our SIGs, which are our special interest groups. The Hand Tool SIG meets the fourth Sunday of the month from 2 to 4. I don't see Rob here. Wayne, do you know what we're doing the next one? So there's not one on October 22nd. So cross that one out for if you were planning to come. The Wood Carvers on October 24th, which is the 4th Tuesday of the month. As usual, hand carving, machine carving, traditional carving, bird carving, any type of carving, come on in, enjoy. We've got some great people that'll be happy to teach you, whether it's how to sharpen, how to hold things, how to approach a project, every aspect. So next one, Laser Engravers, is the 4th Wednesday of the month, so that would be October 28th. Curtis, do you have any announcements related to that? Come on up.
Yeah, Laser Engraver SIG is on next Wednesday at 7 o'clock. And then we're going to have Craig is going to show some of his demonstration on painting some laser work that he's done. So hopefully you'll learn a little bit from him. I'm sure we will. And then after the SIG, if you want to be trained in order to use the laser, you'll stick around and we'll train you that night. So come for the SIG and then we'll train you afterwards.
Awesome. Next one is Scroll Saws, which is the 2nd Wednesday of the month at 7. I have the date of 11/28, but do you have something before that? Yeah, I think the 11/28 date is wrong. So 2nd Wednesday of the month. Do you have anything special, George? So come on out and enjoy some scroll sawing time. And we have guys, George and John will help you out. CNC Group meets the 3rd Tuesday of the month, which would be November 21st. October 21st. Is that a typo? I think the 3rd Tuesday of the month, 6:30 to 7:30. Anything special, Gary or Ed, to talk about? Okay, you got to wait for November 21st. Okay, and then I think that's it for our program. I know I probably went a little bit longer than I like to, so you know me, I like to move faster than that, so I apologize. But I think now we're going to just move right into our program. So Madeline, come on up. Thank you very much for joining us, and we're gonna learn about the National Museum of Toys and Miniatures.
Okay. So is it going to be, in terms of camera view for online, am I being shown both ways? Well, do you want, I guess my question was, do you want me to stand? Do you want me to sit? Whatever you want. Okay. So I want to thank you all for being here tonight, welcoming me, inviting me to talk. I am the curator and senior manager of learning and engagement at the National Museum of Toys and Miniatures. I have been there for about 1.5 years. My previous existence was a professor of art history, so I'm a trained art historian. I come at making from a very historical perspective. I really like to look at things and analyze them and then talk about them incessantly, so you guys tell me when I need to stop. Matt told me 20 to 30 minutes, so I'm gonna really try to watch it. My existence before going into art history, I actually grew up on a dairy farm in Minnesota. So you'll probably hear some accent in there from the Minnesota speak, if you will. But I grew up, I mentioned that just because I grew up working with a lot of different materials and building things. I'm not very skilled at it, but I have done stuff. Okay. Has anybody been to the National Museum of Toys and Miniatures? Okay, a handful of people, but let me just make sure everybody knows where we're located. We're actually celebrating 40 years. We were founded in 1982. We are located on the southwest corner of the University of Missouri Kansas City campus. And we are open every single day except Tuesdays, 10 to 4, so please come on by and see all of these great things. We actually have in our collection over 95,000 objects. That is a lot to take care of. Granted, a lot of the things are small things, but if you have a lot of small things, you know how hard it is to keep track of them. So we do a great job of it, but it is a lot. But I would welcome you to come and see the collection that was actually just founded by 2 women who had a passion for the subject matter. So the collection was founded by Mary Harris Francis, who collected toys, and Barbara Hall Marshall, who collected fine-scale miniatures. And I'm going to focus on fine-scale miniatures, but just as a fun exercise, what's a toy and what's a miniature in here? Like upper left corner, the teddy bear, toy or miniature? Toy, okay. What about the bottom left? It's a book, okay, it's a miniature. The giveaway is the hand, somebody's holding it, it's a tiny little book. It was inspired by Rembrandt's travel sketchbook, and so the artist actually did every single sketch within that book, which is always remarkable to me because you go and look at it on display and you never see more than one of the pages, but every single detail is in that object. Okay, we'll just go counterclockwise here. What about the bottom right? What is it? It's a dollhouse. It's actually the Barbie Magical Mansion from 1990. Appropriate if anyone's seen the Barbie movie. Okay, and then the upper right? Miniature. Okay, and how do you know that's a miniature?
Correct scale.
How do you know it's correct scale? Or how do you know it's scaled at all and it's not just the thing?
It's the perspective of the photo.
Okay, the perspective of the photo. Also, what is the space? What kind of room is it? Like what room, what function? It's a bathroom, okay. And if you look at it, the artist who actually made it is Chris Toledo. When he made that work and photographed it, he actually placed a couple of things in it for scale. The shaving brush and the razor in the middle of the room. And so that gives you that's the giveaway for the scale. If you follow him on Instagram, he has a ton of stuff that he'll do miniature kitchens and put like cloves of garlic in them when he photographs them. So it's really a fun entry into that sense of perspective and scale. So when we think about the difference between our two collections, and we do think about them as distinct things, there are toys and there are miniatures. Toys are things that were meant to be played with. They can be any scale. Our fine scale miniature collection, we consider them artworks, and they are things that have incredible detail to them. They are refined in ways that are absolutely astounding to the eye. And they are not meant to be played with. We get people in sometimes that they want to hold them, they want to take them out, they want to have them put them into a dollhouse display to play with. That's not the function of them. They are works of art. So let me go back to the founders for a moment. When they started collecting, they knew of each other, the families knew of each other, they grew up in Kansas City, but they didn't really, they didn't really align exactly collecting-wise, and so it was a while before they realized, oh, they're both collecting things, they're both really excited about them, they're both really interested in them. But if you've ever collected something that's very similar to somebody else, you know it could end up being they're your enemy, because, for example, if you go to an auction and they're selling that thing that you want, suddenly everyone else who's bidding on it is your worst enemy, right? These two women were absolutely friends. They were close friends. They would go on buying trips together because, as we already talked about, what they were actually collecting was very distinct. And so they could go off and do those collecting trips and support each other in that process. Well, if you've ever collected anything, you know that when you collect things, it kind of accumulates without you even realizing it sometimes. Maybe that's just me. I realized my husband and I just moved about 4 or 5 months ago, and so I went through that process. We hadn't moved prior to that in about 10 years, and then you realize just how much you accumulate, and it's that sense of but then it starts to get hard to let things go, because every single thing, it's got a story behind it, it has a memory behind it. Well, Barbara Hall Marshall and Mary Harris Francis would both collect and collect and collect, okay? Their houses were filling up. And they went on one of these buying trips, and they came back, and they were sitting around the kitchen table and showing Mary Harris Francis's mother everything they had discovered. So if you've ever gone on one of these buying trips, and then you excitedly get to pull the things out of the bag and show everyone what it is that you found. So they're excitedly showing Mary Harris Francis's mother what they have found. And she kind of sighs in exasperation with them and is like, if you girls buy one more thing, you are going to have to open a museum. So they did. And when they opened this museum, they continued to buy the things that they didn't stop buying. They just kept going, right? And it's really kind of delightful when you look at the kinds of things that they were buying, and the things that they were really excited about. What happened when they opened the museum is they got to share it with more people, and that was the idea. They really wanted to share this collection. When they were looking for a space, they really wanted a place that was pretty centrally located. They knew this building on UMKC campus was available. It's actually, if you've been, you recognize the structure. It's actually an Italianate mansion that was built in 1911. It's incredible. It has all of this amazing architecture on it. The home was donated to the university in the 1960s. And then was used for some administrative offices, but they weren't really using it because it's right on the edge of campus. And so the women approached them and said, can we put our museum in this space? And the university actually welcomed it, because then the building was going to be occupied by it would have a function again. So they opened the Toy and Miniature Museum of Kansas City, as it was originally called. They opened that in 1982, and they essentially filled the home to the brim. And they loved the fact, though, that they could do that, and that the space really had an atmosphere to it. It had this historical feel to it, that they could place their objects in. So their objects that they collected, they were collecting stories around those objects, and then they considered they were sharing those stories within the space, and that people were bringing their stories into the space with the objects. We no longer keep our objects in the mansion anymore. We've actually expanded multiple times, and you can see those expansions on the right. The blue part is the original home, the mansion, and then we did a big the first big expansion is that kind of pink colored space, and then that white element on the far right is the final expansion. And that's our footprint right now. And we really can't expand anymore, which is a little bit troubling because we keep growing. We keep building our collection. We do have it divided between the toys and the miniatures. And we're very specific about it. So we have fine scale miniatures on the first level and toys on the second level, because what will often happen for visitors who come who have never looked at a fine scale miniature, they think immediately there can be confusion about it's dollhouse furniture. But again, it's not. It's works of art. So we've color coded things and we put them on different floors. So when you come to visit, because I know you're all going to come tomorrow, right? Yes. Okay. When you come, you're going to know that you're in the fine scale miniature section if you're in that blue area. The blue, the kind of turquoise, is the fine scale miniatures. The orange is the toy section. All right. In the interest of time, I'm going to just show you a couple of things from the toy section. So the toy section is upstairs, so we're going to trot upstairs. We have things of, this is a photo from my favorite hallway. It's the iconic toys hallway, and so it has toys from each decade. This is where you go when you get to look at objects that you can either exclaim in delight that you had that toy, or it brings on a sad tale of it's the toy that you always wanted, that your parents did not get you. So there are mixed feelings there, right? And then you can see things like some of the original objects in the collection. Mary Harris Francis was the toy collector, and so this is the first dollhouse that she purchased. We call it the New Rochelle Mystery House. She purchased it at auction on the East Coast, had it shipped back to Kansas City. And I love the story around this because actually when it got back to Kansas City, it showed up, if you can imagine, a giant dollhouse, because it's about like that from the floor up here. It's big. So imagine this arriving on your doorstep. Her husband was a little bit surprised. This large object shows up. But she assured him that he didn't have anything to worry about because she had had this urge for a historic dollhouse, and this was going to satisfy the urge. Not to worry. We have over 300 dollhouses in so.
It's like tools.
Exactly. So let's go downstairs in the museum to the miniatures. And we just have so many. I can't even begin. It's always hard to choose. We do have them in different, when I give talks, I'm always like, oh, I should talk about that one. And then somebody's going to ask a question, and I'll say, I wish I would have brought an image of that one. You'll just have to have me back a lot to talk. And you'll all have to come to the museum, right? So primarily the scale that we collect is 1/12. So that means that this is a perfect example. This is actually the first thing you see when you walk into our fine scale miniature gallery space. You see the full-sized inspiration object, and then you see the miniature object tucked over there on the right side, and then you see on the right photo the person leaning down to look at the miniature version of it. So 1 inch on the fine scale miniature equals 1 foot in its inspiration piece. So that is the primary scale. That's not to say we don't have other scaled objects, some that are a little bit bigger, some that are a lot smaller than 1/12 scale. But for anybody in the fine scale miniature making world, that is the primary scale that artists are working with. I'm going to show you a couple of highlights, some of my favorite pieces. This is the Nativity by Althea Crome. It is a piece, she actually did this in 2017. It's a little sweater. It is only about this big. So again, all of this is 1/12 scale. This little sweater has about 50,000 stitches in it. It's all hand knit. And I love this because it's actually something that was transformed from the inspiration. So the inspiration piece for this is actually a triptych, actually a pretty large scale triptych piece, painted panel that's at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. A triptych panel has a central panel and then two wings that fold in on it. The way that she thought about this is she transformed it into a cardigan sweater where the your elements of your sweater fold out, and that's your triptych. And I love that because it's like thinking about this original piece and you're still inspired by it, but you're transforming it into something new, and that's teeny tiny. This is the American Architecture Classroom as it would look around circa 1900. The piece itself was done in 1991 by William R. Robertson. He is probably the most renowned, or is the most renowned, fine scale miniature artist working today. He lives in Kansas City. He's at the museum with some frequency. In fact, he was there today. Chatting with us about some pieces, but I love, well, really everything about this space, this what we call a room box. So he has recreated an entire space, an entire room, not just one element of it. But actually my favorite thing in here is the wastebasket, because I'll just show you some details of it. The wastebasket has a bunch of crumpled up plans, architectural plans. He went to the effort to do all of the architectural plans and then crumpled them up and put them in the trash can. Because it's got to be realistic. This is the thing with fine scale miniature artists. They are so particular about the details. I'm sure nobody in this room understands being very particular about the finish of your work, right? Yeah. We have a lot of musical instruments in the collection. This is a harpsichord. It was inspired by a 17th century harpsichord. It does make sound. We actually received it with a miniature tuning fork. So that's exciting, right? You can't really miniaturize sound, so if you play it, it's not going to sound the same, but you can play this harpsichord, which is really remarkable. So that level of detail. And then I put this in because I like guacamole, so enjoy. And then also, I put this in here. I actually did this piece. This is the first fine scale miniature work that I created. You can go take classes with IGMA, or the International Guild of Miniature Artists. They do classes, workshops at different locations. I took a class last January in Williamsburg, Virginia, and had not really made things since college. And I think it turned out okay. I think my favorite part are the little in the lower right corner of the panel are tiny almonds. Those were the bane of my existence for about 7.5 hours, but they got done. One of the things that everybody who comes to the museum always wonders about is how do you make this work? And so when we did the most recent renovation most recent big renovation of the space in 2014, 2015, we had this space created called In the Artist Studio that shows the components, the step-by-step processes of the making aspect of this detailed work. So you can go into all kinds of things. You can think about doing, there's actually in the lower right corner, there's a little tiny, it's a miniature wheel to throw ceramic work. So going through the process of that It goes into details like this is a dovetail drawer, so it goes through the process of making one of those. And it also talks about the fact, and this is the case when you go and look at any of the furnishings in our collection, we don't have all the drawers open. We have everything set. We show different angles of things. But for a fine scale miniature artist, even though the drawer is closed, they're still going to go to the effort to do the dovetail drawer, the more complicated drawer, because if it was like that in the inspiration piece, that's what they're going to do. And then this one shows, there's also an area that shows painting. We have a pretty good collection of fine scale miniature paintings. And I love this. So I mentioned I was an art historian, but I am an Italian Renaissance specialist. So I've looked at a lot of Italian Renaissance paintings and looked at the processes. And I love that this is one that was done by Leanne Chellis Wessel, who shows in this process piece how you paint the human figure in the Renaissance, and studying the process using tempera paint, which is pigment mixed with egg yolk. When Renaissance artists did that, in order to get the skin tone, they would do what is called a terra verde, a green layer. So if you look at about like the third and fourth images of the process piece, you can see that there's green, there are green layers on the face. In order to get the final result, they put that terra verde on. If you go to an art museum today and walk through medieval or Renaissance paintings, you can do this at the Nelson Atkins if you happen to go through that collection. You will notice that some of the figures actually look sickly. That was not the intention of it. It is just because that over time those overlays have worn away and you're just seeing that terra verde layer come through. But it's really interesting, I think, to go through. You can see the process coming through in those works. This is probably my favorite work in the entire collection. It is the one that I stop and look at the most. I feel very lucky to work at this museum and get to spend time with these objects every day. But this is the Studiolo Gubbio. It was created in 2004 by 4 different artists. They worked collaboratively. That's a big thing in the fine scale miniature world. And I think that's a thing that you're all very familiar with here, because you're gathered here. And this is a space where you all get together and I'm sure you help each other work through problems, think through how to do a new technique. That's what these fine scale miniature artists are doing as well. So this room box, so like that architect's classroom, it's a room that you're looking into. It is inspired by a space that was created in the Renaissance in the 15th century. That space was about 15 by 11 feet. It's not a big room. So this is about 15 by 11 inches. And you can see it when you go into the museum. So you can see that chair from the demonstration piece when you first walk in. The area, the placement of this piece I love so much because it's actually tucked just to the left when you walk in. So when you get in and you start to look at it, what it is I feel like it's a microcosm of what the entire space is, because this type of room, a studiolo, was a type of room in the Renaissance. And it was a space that was primarily cupboards made out of wood that held important objects. These spaces were not very big, and you would have to be invited into the space in somebody's home. You couldn't just wander in. And if you got invited, you were pretty special to the person who invited you in, because they were inviting you in to show them their collection of things that were kept in these cupboards. We think about these spaces today as the origins of the modern day museum. They were spaces for collections. So I love it as this representation. It's like a Renaissance museum, a miniature version of that, and then you're going to look at the entire space through that framework, through that lens. This is what the space looks like today. It doesn't exist in Italy anymore. It actually is at the Met in New York. They took it apart in Gubbio, Italy, and moved it across the ocean and recreated it in New York. The artists who worked on our miniature version of it, when they decided they were going to do this project, they actually all gathered in New York with Barbara Hall Marshall, and they examined the blueprints that the Met had. They talked to the curators. They looked at every detail of this object, and then they signed the commissioning document for the project in this room, which I love that, because it shows how much attention to and dedication to that inspiration piece that the artists had when they were trying to bring it to life in a different version. I also love it because this room doesn't really exist anymore. So it's not in Gubbio anymore. They've recreated the outside framework of it, but the paintings aren't in the space anymore. There's a beautiful coffered ceiling that isn't in the space. The flooring isn't there anymore. But the fine scale miniature artists can read the documents, they can look at the historical details, and they can recreate it and help us understand what it looked like and what it is. So here are a couple process photos of the artists working on it. And it's a wonderful example of wood inlay. And it's also what we would refer to as a trompe-l'oeil or fool the eye image. So all the cupboards it's just wood, right? It's all flat wood. It's been inlaid with the different cuts of the pieces, but they are configured in such a way to show images of, it's actually revealing things that are inside the cupboards, but the cupboards look like they're open. Like right now, the cupboards are closed, but they look like they're open, right? And you can see in the details some of the things that are revealed within the cupboards. There are things like books and musical instruments, scientific objects. There's another view of the coffered ceiling. Let me go back to some cupboards and show you some details here. I'll finish up here really fast, I promise. But I love these details, and I love this idea of revealing. So if you think about anyone you've shown, something you collect, or if you think about showing a piece that you've made here, there's a process of revealing. You might invite somebody to come and look at it. They're going to walk through the door of this space, experience the environment. You're going to then show them the different elements. You're maybe going to turn the piece over. You're going to look at it from different angles. There's a process when you would enter one of these rooms, and you would be awed by the woodwork on the walls, and then you would be further awed when the door of the cupboards would be opened and the patron's collection would be shown off. Find things like these. We don't have the original owner's objects anymore, but we do have inventory records, so we know what was in the space. Anybody want to take a guess as to what the thing on the left is? It's an ostrich egg. Yes. And they loved collecting ostrich eggs because they believed the stories around them were that they were dragon's eggs. So they were actually collecting these precious, really precious objects. What about on the right? Anybody know what's being framed in the vessel on the right? Good. Okay, sure. It could be a painted ostrich egg. But it's actually a coconut. Yeah, I heard somebody say it. Yeah. And they would carve scenes onto the coconuts. There was also a lot of glass work in there. And actually what I'm showing you here is a full-scale glass piece over there on the right. But on the left, we actually have a collection of these small objects that would have been found in Studioli at the museum. So you can come and see both what a space like this would look like, as well as things that were in it. Oh, this is impressive. So this is also a type of thing that would have been in a studiolo. the carved elements that are kind of reddish in both of these objects. Any guesses as to what those are? There's some kind of seed. Yeah, they're actually cherry pits. So if you think about how small a cherry pit is, that one on the left is in a little brooch. There are actually 100 heads carved onto that cherry pit. And so this is the kind of thing, like you imagine you're revealing and showing people how impressive and worldly you are because you understand how valuable that thing is and you appreciate it. You've collected it and now you're going to show it off to everyone. And no Studiolo was complete without one of these. Narwhal horn, but what did they think they were? What were they presented as? Unicorn horns. So everyone had a unicorn horn. All right, I'm going to spend like 2 minutes showing one more object. 2 more minutes, okay. It'll probably be 5. Okay, we just opened a new exhibit at the museum that I really hope you all come out and see. If I didn't entice you enough with like the sampling and then the Studiolo, this better do it. This is a work by Chris Toledo. It's 17.5 feet long. It's a miniature art museum. So here's the digital rendering where it started. It's really a beautiful piece. And a lot of the components are actually wood, even though they've been treated to look. Chris does this amazing marble technique where he covers the surfaces and basically marbleizes these wood surfaces to make it look like he's carved it out of wood. So let me flip through some process photos because I think we all appreciate and love a good process photo. These are images from the atrium. So there's a central atrium and then 5 rooms that go off of the central atrium that are exhibit spaces for our fine scale miniature paintings that will rotate at different points. So we're curating the spaces within the Miniature Art Museum. And I love that, like, he did a coffered ceiling just like that is in the Studiolo. He actually visited, when we commissioned this piece, he came out to Kansas City. He'd never been here. And we took him out to the Nelson Atkins Museum of Art. And so elements of the space are inspired by that. It's not an exact replica, but it takes different components of it. And for scale, we got a lot of these when he was working on it. This is Stella, his dog. Delightful, right? And there you can see, like, it has that, I mean, it's breathtaking, and there are just the level of detail in it that he did with it is just, it blows my mind every time I walk by it. And actually, in the final version, you're going to have to come to the museum to see this, but in the final version of the fountain, he did put water elements, not real water, because we wouldn't allow that in the museum, but he did put, he created this fountain with the water in it and then actually cut out tiny little coins. So if you go and you look at the details of it, there are tiny coins that people have thrown into the fountain. And I think he just did this remarkable job on the flooring. This is a kind of flooring that you would find in a lot of medieval and Renaissance buildings. You also find them just in a lot of art museums, but this is wood that he has made to look like marble. Let me see, here's some installation work. It was honestly when we had it constructed so Chris lives in Los Angeles, so he really only visited us twice while he was working on this. And when he came to visit, he would do all these careful measurements. We worked with our construction crew to make sure that there was a lot of communication going back and forth. But you just don't know if everything is going to fit until you slide it in. And I'm telling you, there was a noticeable, everyone was holding their breath, and there was this audible release when it slid, that atrium piece in the center slid in perfectly. It's like, it's all fine, it's all fine. Chris contracted with Bill Robertson, who you see over there on the left, to do the drinking fountains and the wall sconces in the atrium space. Bill might be doing a couple of other things too, because we do let artists keep working on the thing. You know, if there are different components they still want to add to it. So we're still in some conversation about some elements of it. But it was really great to have those two working together in the museum space too, as that installation happened. And all the wiring, of course, had to happen to get the lighting effects in there. But Bill's an expert at that, so we were in good hands. And here's our collections manager then actually installing the paintings. So what we've done in these spaces, these room boxes for the gallery spaces, is we actually had Chris put magnetic surface on them, and then we're putting magnets on the backs of the paintings as we hang them, and so we can easily put them in and out, and then we are also not dealing with having to constantly straighten the paintings. So they are in place. But that's been really a fun project to curate and kind of think about how to put the painting collection together in new ways. And this is very different than how we had the paintings displayed before. We had them in a kind of salon style hanging they were mostly just on a single wall in a cabinet before, kind of floor to ceiling hung. Nobody looked at them. It makes such a difference when you reframe something and display it in a different way. And I'll leave you with, these are the 3 exhibits that we have up right now, or that will be. The one, Transformations, New Perspectives on the Art of Miniatures, is actually opening next Thursday, the 26th. And actually, if any of you are interested in coming to the opening of that, you are welcome to do so. You can sign up through our social media. You can get it on our Facebook page, and there is a link to sign up to come to that. But we also, and that is an exhibit of artists that work with small things but then transform them into something else. We also have, I think you'd all also find the joyous art of Abraham Megardichian really interesting. He worked for years in a factory and would bring home metal parts with him every day, and then go to his home studio, and then he would create these fantastic, they're not fine scale miniature exact scaled objects, but he used that metal to create new and exciting things that he would just give away to friends and family. But they're very delightful, honestly, in their presentations. So I would welcome all of you to come and see not just elements of our permanent collection, but also these exciting exhibitions that we have up right now. So thank you so much for your attention and allowing me to talk a little bit longer than I said I would. And I don't know, time-wise, if you wanted to do a couple of questions or if you just wanted to let people chat for a bit during the break.
I got a.
Okay.
Green? Okay. Yeah, I highly recommend that everyone go to if you haven't been there, this is really a crown jewel of Kansas City for sure. It's like the Louvre in Paris. You gotta go.
Yeah.
And what's nice about it too, just curiously, Pizza 51 is right down the street.
Oh, our staff goes there all the time.
That's where the Chiefs went. Mahomes and everybody else went after they won one of the big games. They went to Pizza 51. So if you want to go to a really crazy place, it's right down the street from UMKC and from the museum.
Yeah, Andy Reid's favorite pizza slice is from there, and I can't remember which one it is, but the Star did something on it, I think last year. So yeah.
And if the museum ever does another international gathering of miniature artists, make sure you attend that. I mean, you will meet people from around the world that are absolutely crazy. I mean, these people are weird. You know, working in these miniatures.
It's a lovely way to describe them. Yes.
Yeah, I mean.
You have to be to be able to work in that level of detail and to become that level of obsession, really. Yeah, you have to be a special type of person.
Yeah, we've got a few around here.
Okay.
Is on? Bill Robinson actually was a member. He joined probably 40 years ago, and
Yeah,
he
was
may
telling me
still
today
be a
about- yeah.
member.
Okay,
He's
I don't
giv-
know if he is.
He's
current.
given at least, I can remember at least 3 talks. To
Yeah,
the
he
guild
was
over there.
reminiscing a bit about those today. Yes, he still thinks very fondly of the group. Yeah.
Yeah, I was remembering with Madeline earlier, but I don't know, eight or so years ago, I did a program at the Nelson with Bill Robertson where I demonstrated furniture details like cutting dovetails in full scale, and then he did it. Of course, mine were very boring. His were fantastic, but that was really fun. Anyone else?
I would just say this just touches on some of the stuff that's there, and it's kind of like the World War I museum. When you go, you need to go for 2 days.
Or you should just
you
become a
won't
member.
see
and
it.
come all the time.
You
How am I
won't see
doing?
it
Am I
all.
selling it well? Someone
It's like
tell my supervisor that I'm
You,
doing a
you,
good job.
it'll blow your mind. You go, they had to learn to blow glass, and
Uh-huh.
cast metal,
Yeah.
and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been to Bill Robertson's shop, and his whole wood collection like fits underneath his stairs. Are there any other questions?
I think right here.
To what extent do they use 3D printing in this?
So that's a great question, and this is actually a very, it can be pretty contentious in the fine scale miniature world about using or not using that. The artists that we have collected thus far do not do it, and there are some pretty strong feelings against it, that it's all being done completely by hand. Now I say that, but I will also add that Chris Toledo, who just did our miniature art museum, and we also have another room box. Well, that little, the bathroom room box that I showed you at the beginning when I was like, what's a toy and what's a miniature? This will be a fun game. That's also by Chris Toledo. Now although he does not do 3D printing at this point with his work, he is not strongly opposed to it. He's open to it if it's going to help facilitate something that he's trying to do. He's not opposed to it. But it is a very, it can get a pretty, people have very strong feelings about it.
Like
Yeah.
CNC and woodworking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think on behalf of the guild, we want to thank you very much for coming. This is a great program. We have a token here.
Oh,
You can only get this by presenting here. So
Oh, okay.
that's your Woodworkers Guild
right.
coffee mug, and this is
Wonderful.
the mug shot we get with
Oh, okay,
everyone.
okay.
So thank you,
All right.
thank you again.
Wonderful.
Wonderful. Okay, everyone, we're gonna take an 8-minute break. So grab a cookie or a refreshment, and then we're gonna come back and do show and tell. So thank you again, Madeline.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like you needed this microphone.
Oh, is that too loud?
Hello, my name is Rick Chandler, and welcome to another of the Kansas City Woodworkers Guild's ongoing series of machine safety videos. Our discussion today will cover your introduction to the safety rules and requirements of the various bandsaws owned by the Guild and how to safely operate these popular pieces of equipment. Keep in mind that this video is meant to cover the safety concerns of this machine and not a complete training program for the use of the bandsaw. When in the shop, please direct any questions about using these or any other machines to the on-duty shop foreman. He or she is there to act as your main resource to help keep you safe and to provide advice and assisting you to successfully complete your project. You should always remember the most important of safety concerns is to wear OSHA-approved safety glasses with side shields at all times while in the Kansas City Woodworkers Guild shops. Your regular glasses are not approved for use when participating in any shop activity while you're at the Guild. When using any of our bandsaws, it is doubtful that the noise level would necessitate hearing protection, but if you feel more comfortable wearing earplugs or earmuffs, by all means do so. One caution on hearing protection though, Guild rules stipulate that any hearing protection may not have the ability to receive any type of broadcast music or podcasts. Failure to follow this requirement may result in losing your shop privileges. The bandsaw has a thin blade in the form of a continuous loop. It is useful for cutting curves, resawing, and cutting thick material. Before turning on the bandsaw, make sure that the blade tension lever is in the on position and that the blade tracks with the gullets tracking in the center of the tires when you rotate the wheels by hand. The teeth of the bandsaw blade should be pointing down toward the cutting surface of the saw. The blade should be 1/32 of an inch from the roller bearing guide behind the blade. There are guides both above and below the saw table, and both should be checked for proper adjustment. Side guide bearings or blocks should also be adjusted to 1/32 of an inch away from the sides of the blade and should be behind the teeth on the blade. If you aren't sure what the tolerances are or how to set them, check with the shop foreman, and they can help you the first time you're going through the process. Make sure that the upper and lower wheel guard doors are closed and latched before you turn on the bandsaw. Set the upper guide as low as possible to your workpiece without touching the wood you're going to cut. This guarantees that the blade is completely covered without room for a finger to accidentally slip under the guide. The maximum distance for the guide to be above the stock should not exceed 1/4 of an inch or as low as possible if you need to clear a fence mounted on the bandsaw. Any bystanders should be instructed to remain away from the right-hand area of the saw and not be closer than 24 inches from you while you're operating the saw. It is especially important to keep any bystanders away from the right-hand side of the bandsaw. Broken blades have a tendency to fly out to the right and may cause very serious injury to bystanders standing on the right side of the machine. To power up the bandsaw, ensure that all doors and covers are in place and latched. Then, first turn on the dust collector that attached to your saw, and once the dust collector is on, power up the bandsaw, first making sure that there are no objects touching the mounted blade. Make sure that the equipment has reached full speed before you approach the machine to begin cutting your material. Also remember, the 3-inch rule always applies. That is a 3-inch buffer on all sides of the blade. Your fingers, hands, and other body parts should never be allowed to become closer than 3 inches away from a moving part of the machine. It is also important that you not be wearing jewelry or loose clothing. If you have long hair, be sure that it's tied back so that there's no possibility of coming loose and making contact with any moving part of the machine. Never open any covers of a machine while it is running or start a machine before any and all covers have been properly secured. Keep your fingers and hands away from the path of the blade. Never use your thumbs to push your workpiece toward the blade, even if you're pushing from many inches away. Hidden voids in your material may suddenly cause the wood to jump forward through the blade at seeming lightning speed, causing serious injury or amputation. When you're cutting small or short stock, use push sticks, feather boards, or other appropriate safety devices to control the workpiece as you make your cut. Do not force a cut. Allow the blade to dictate the rate of cutting. Forcing a cut can and will probably break the blade on the bandsaw. Don't cut stock that is not flat on the bottom without holding it in an appropriate jig. As an example, when cutting cylindrical objects, you should use a V-block as we're demonstrating here. When working with long or cumbersome material, set up a roller stand to support your work as it enters and leaves the saw. It can become impossible to support these materials without the help of some kind of support system. When making cuts with the table at an angle, clamp a block to the table to keep your stock from slipping off. While resawing wood, it is okay to start your cut when standing on the infeed side of the blade, then letting go of your workpiece, circling around the machine to the outfeed side of the table, then pulling your material through the blade. Again, make sure you are drawing the wood through the bandsaw only as fast as the saw is able to handle the cutting the stock. If you're not cutting all the way through your stock, Don't back the stock away from the blade without turning the machine off first. Turn the machine off and wait for the blade to come to a complete stop before backing out of a cut. If you're making curve cuts, you should plan your cut to prevent twisting or binding on the blade. Also, plan on where you will need to use push sticks or where it may be necessary to install a fence to keep you and others safe while cutting your stock. Each blade width has a minimum radius that is able to cut. We have charts posted on or near each bandsaw that show the minimum radius that a particular blade width can cut. If the blade does break, shut the machine off and stand clear until everything stops. Once the machine is stopped, unplug the saw from its power source and immediately notify the foreman on duty. They will assist you in changing the blade and getting the machine up and running properly again. You should never stick an object into the blade to stop the machine. Let it stop on its own or use the brake if the saw has one. The bandsaw produces a very fine sawdust, and this is sometimes not all captured by the attached dust collector. Dust depositing on the floor around the machine can cause the floor to become extremely slick and creates a significant fall risk. Pay attention to this and sweep or vacuum the floor when necessary. Don't be responsible for yours or someone else's fall injury. When finished using the machine, turn off the bandsaw and wait for the blade to come to a complete stop. Turn off the dust collector, check inside the machine and vacuum out any dust. Take a few extra moments to clean up the rest of the machine and the floor around where you've been working. This is Rick Chandler for the Kansas City Woodworkers Guild. Thanks for watching and be safe.
All right, everyone. Let's get back and if you've got show and tell, you might want to line up. And without further ado, come on up, Jim. You have the floor.
Okay. Okay, so who's the sign? Okay, who's got the cutting boards? Okay, so you turned this, and this is made out of scrap.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm in the process of trying to use up my scraps and make Christmas gifts. So I made these charcuterie boards. I just call them serving boards because I can't say it right. And these, the walnut and ash strips are actually leftovers from some rocking chairs I made 15 years ago. And I just added, I had a bunch of other strips, they're 1/8-inch strips laminated together. And so I just added more to make it a hand width wide, and then cut the cherry to fit the curve.
So you cut the curve on the bandsaw, and how did you get to basically how did you get these glue joints that tight on a curve?
This strip is laminated, right? I had a form, and those are laminated. So then I found on the pin on my router table, I use a pin router setup. So you've got the bit coming up, and then the pin on top, right? So I take this strip and put it down on the board, so it's raised up. So the pilot runs on that, and I cut up from the bottom just 1/4 inch up. and that follows the pattern. Then cut the excess off on the bandsaw, and then use a flush trim bit to make the rest of it. It actually goes pretty fast. I mean, I had a little bit of figure in the first time, but once I got it figured out, it only.
Did you have any problem gluing it up?
I mean, there isn't that much of a curve, so it kind of fits right into where it's supposed to go. Clamp it up and then cut it out on the bandsaw.
What are the names on these? What does that indicate?
I've gone to the dark side. I got laser trained.
Oh, man.
Okay. So, but I did pick out a font that looked like I did it by hand.
Okay.
and I even came up with a logo. Papa's
okay.
Workshop. There's actually some video on making these was around the first of the month.
So what's the significance of the names? Or
they're all Christmas gifts.
Okay, and that's the name of who it's going to?
Yeah,
okay.
That's my sister, our daughter, and grandmother gets one. She gets the small one. I ended up having to make 7 of these because she liked them so much. She kept thinking of other people that need to have them.
You know, these are dual purpose.
They're supposed to be, the charcuterie boards? You're supposed to have meats.
And you can use them for corporal punishment.
Yeah. But I got all different sizes.
Okay, so tell us about your bowl.
The bowl was kind of I saw this on YouTube where a guy just took just a 10-inch square board and made the bowl. And I decided when I had a bunch of thin strips of cherry and maple, and I glued those up so that it was about a 5 or 6 inch wide board. And then I cut the 22.5 wedges, 22.5 degree wedges.
What'd you use to cut? I mean, did you use a jig to cut those till you got them perfectly?
I've got a what do you call the board on the table where it's got I can adjust the angle.
Okay.
And then I put a stop block on there and a thing to hold it in place. So that's probably the hardest part of this. But I chose to do that rather than have the one board where you had to fight end grain. This gave me long grain pretty much all the way when I had to turn it, because I'm not that great of a turner. But once I got it glued up, and it's just a flat board, then you take and you angle the bandsaw, and in my case I use 40 degrees, and then you cut the ring. And then you move the pilot up and you cut the second ring, and you just work your way down, and then you flip it over and you just glue so there's 1 ring, 2 ring, 3 ring, and then the bottom. You just glue it, and it's you have to have the distance between the rings makes it so that it's about right. So they all kind of line up inside and out.
What'd you finish it with?
Odie's oil. I got some
awesome.
of that just to see what it was like, and it's food safe. So
Odie's also makes a product called butter.
Yeah.
And it's basically a wax. And what I do is I build tables for the furniture bank, and I put a coat of Odie's oil. I'll wait a day, and I'll put that butter wax on it and buff it out. And it.
Yeah, I mean it was relatively quick, so let it sit for an hour.
What's amazing is that you when you sand this out, it's a dull finish, and then you put that Odie's oil on it.
I did sand it finer than I would have normally to get it as.
So what did you sand it out to?
Down to 400.
Okay.
So
awesome. Any questions about these projects? Thanks, Tom.
If you want to do the bowl, search it on YouTube. There's every time I get on YouTube, I see a dozen different ones.
Woodworker's best friend. Okay, who's next? Who's... You can put that up here. Hi.
Close enough to the microphone? Okay, perfect.
Here you go.
Thank you. So this is a bench my daughter and I built together. She's up here co-presenting, and it gave us an opportunity. This is actually a piece of wood I found in a barn on some land that's been in our family for generations down in the Hillsdale, Kansas area. And it is from a house that was disassembled on that property and then stored in the barn. The barn has since fallen down. And so I was looking through it, and I found this 12-foot long hunk of what I think is pine. It was rough sawn. We put it through the planer, found some really old nails in it, and then removed as much of that as we could, and then put it through the table saw and found a couple more. But ultimately, there was no room for mistakes. I had just enough wood to make it, so I chose not to mortise and tenon the joints. I was a little nervous about making a mistake on that, and so I pocket screwed everything, but I've made it so that when it sits against the wall where it is in our house, you don't really see those shortcuts. A couple points that I want to call out. The legs are at a 5 degree. I learned that trick while making in the class here at the Guild, this bench. And then the top, I use the joinery and the attachments that I learned in the intermediate woodworking class. So otherwise, there was no plan. I was like, well, okay, 5 degree leg, and I Googled online how tall a bench should be, and that was how tall I made it. And the most complicated part was this here, because I've got compound angles meeting, and it had to be flat in the end, and doggone it was. So I was really happy. I had to true up and tune all of my tools so that the angles were right, and that was a learning process in and of itself.
So my guess is this is southern yellow pine, if it's that old and from this area.
Yeah, okay.
Was it pretty hard?
It was, and
Yeah,
the grain is really tight.
Mhm.
So I'm pleased with it. It's been in our entryway about 6 months, and I haven't seen any dents or scratches, so it's holding up well.
So what was your contribution to this?
I got to help this piece.
Yep.
And then I also like screwed in the planks and whatnot.
Yep. Did some routing, the trim router. Yep.
So are you a student? Are you a student in school? What grade are you in?
9th.
Wow. So you're getting started early.
I mean, I started like woodworking and such when I was around like 6. So.
Yep. So real
early.
We started on a scroll saw with a lot of supervision, and since graduated to other fun tools. Yeah.
So you got any future projects in mind?
So far no, but yeah, not really right now.
Okay. Are you going to take woodworking in high school?
I want to, but that class is pretty heavily sought after, so like the chances of me getting in are also slim, but I could just like kind of do it at home as well, so I don't really have to worry about
What high school do you go to?
Piper.
Okay. Show them a picture of that. Show them a picture of what you built. That'll get you in.
Yeah, yeah.
There.
That'll get you in.
Yep.
And if you need any recommendations, just call on me.
Yeah. I guess there's one other thing I would call out on the bottom of this. I wrote a little bit about where the wood is from, and then I even scanned in my signature, and I used a friend's laser engraver, and it was a small desktop one that we could actually sit on top of the wood, and I think I'm in love with that technique, because I've thought about making or getting one of those burner brands for my woodworking projects, but the laser is just really convenient. You can make it say and do what you need.
So you stained this, and then what do you use for finish?
Varathane for the stain, and then wipe on poly. I think 5 coats of that.
Okay. Oil-based poly?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So
Would you do this again?
Yeah, it was fun.
You like working with your dad? Good.
Yep. She's a good helper.
I have 2 daughters, and I didn't get them into the shop until they were in their 20s. So, and it was because, Dad, can you help me make a wedding present for somebody?
Yep.
Okay, anybody got any questions about this project? Nice piece of work.
Thank you.
Really, really nice.
Thank you.
Here's your, go up and get a ticket from. Okay, who's next? Ed? Did you make this for future use?
No, I currently use it.
Okay.
No, I was attending a. Oh, sorry. I was attending a online conference on CNC out of Colorado about 3-4 months ago, and they demonstrated a technique for machining on the side of a part in a CNC machine, and I'd been playing around with a spiral tool path before, so combining those together, I ended up with a square spiral. I've also tried it with 6 and 8 sides and didn't like the looks of that, but the 4-sided one looks pretty good, I thought. So anyway, I had a test piece in here one day. I hadn't taken it out and thrown it in the back of the truck, and one of our guild members saw it and said, "Oh man, that would make a nice walking cane." And so I played around with how to do the handle and did some test cuts and ended up with the end product. So,
What did you use for reinforcing on this handle to the staff?
there's a 3/4 inch round tenon that's 1 3/4 inches long up into the handle, and the tenon was part of the mahogany shaft.
Okay, so was this also done in a CNC machine?
Yes.
So you had this glued together before you did
No.
the work?
No, I turned the shaft in the turning center, and that was done on the horizontal table. Cut one side of it and flipped it over and did the other side, and then put it in what's called the vertical vise to cut the mortise down,
Okay.
down in. And whenever I assembled it, it had just a little bit of a ridge on here where the maple and the mahogany joined. And I don't think I have 15 or 20 minutes of sanding before I started applying finish. It was
What'd
came
you
out
use
that
for
smooth.
finish?
The mahogany has probably 8 coats or so of wax-free shellac, and then the whole thing was top-coated with 3 coats of water-based poly.
Okay. So that makes one full twist?
Yes.
Okay.
And I've tried it with 1 1/2 twist and a half twist, and I like the full twist better. So
So if I need one of these in the future, which probably is going to happen, I can come to you?
yes, for a fee.
All right. Anybody got any questions about this? Dave?
How long did it take to be on the CNC machine to do the spiral? Approximately an hour, 2 hours?
It took about, as I recall, 18 minutes to machine it, about 6 weeks to program it. The programming actually, once you work all the little kinks out of it, is fairly straightforward. And I do have a friend here that's wanting to make one, and he and I will be getting together sometime in the near future, and I'll teach him how to do this. And hopefully we can get through it in a couple of days rather than in a couple of months. So,
Any other questions? Thanks, Ed. Nice work.
thank you.
Looks great. Any more? think that's it. Cal?
That's it. Well, thank you for those awesome projects. Thanks for bringing them in. Guys, very good meeting tonight. It was great to see everybody. So, thanks for coming. Oh, we got a draw for the winner there. Yeah, if you this is the night to do your show and tell.
Last three, 4, 6, 5.
4, 6, 5. Those are the numbers. All right, Tom. All right, everyone. Thanks. Have a great night. Feel free to hang out and feel free to help clean up and put the chairs away. As usual, help set up the shop. Great to see everybody. Have a good week. Have a good rest of your week, etc.
For more information about the Guild, upcoming classes, and events, please visit our website kcwg.org. You can also find us on social media by searching for Kansas City Woodworkers Guild. And remember to hit the subscribe button and ring the bell for a special thank you to our guest today, to the Guild's Leadership Committee, and to all of our sponsors.